Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean Kern. This is Richie Merritt, my co-host, and we're here to provide you with news and information that you will not find on the mainstream media. We broadcast on Manchester Public Television Channel 23 every Monday at 5:30 p.m., Thursday morning 7:30, Saturday 9 a.m., Sunday 2 p.m. You can also find us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Inform New Hampshire. If you'd like to contact us, ask us questions, or provide us with information, the email is on the bottom of your screen out there. So for those of you who've missed our previous shows, we cover a lot of different subjects: the Constitution, the court system. Richie and I are both state coordinators for National Liberty Alliance. We believe the nation is in great peril, and the National Liberty Alliance has a legal and lawful solution to America's problems. In particular, National Liberty Alliance is committed to restoring the common law grand juries in all 3,133 counties in the United States. The grand juries, as you will find if you read U.S. versus William, Justice Scalia, who was recently murdered in my estimation, you'll find his ruling all about the common law grand jury, and find out that it really is a fourth branch of government, but it is not part of the government. It is our right and our duty, and for we the people, to use the common law grand juries to root out corruption within our government and to keep government in check. And we are committed to that end. National Liberty Alliance, you can find it at nationallibertyalliance.org. You can become a member without having to pay anything. It's a great educational site. And we also hold weekly meetings here Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. in Manchester. Happy for you to come out and check us out. Today's show is about the CAFRs, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. Every government institution, municipality, in reality, every government for-profit, privately owned corporation masquerading as government is required to fill out a CAFR every year. Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, entirely different from what they provide you with, which is an argument over the budget in order to get more taxes out of you. But the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report gives you an enormous amount of information about the financial wherewithal of each government municipality. So, having said that, Richie, how would you like to start off?
Well, I'd like to say something. First of all, I want to follow up on last week because a good friend of ours was arrested a few weeks ago. I wanted to mention again that anybody that wants to contribute to his legal fund, Jets Jerry DeLemus here in New Hampshire, I believe they're trumped up charges that the federal government gave him because he went out to the Bundy Ranch a few years ago. You can go to his website. It's www.patriotjerry.com. And I'm sure him and his wife, Sue, who's a state rep, would appreciate it if you could help contribute to them. They're both patriotic people. They care about their country. They're not violent people or destructive people at all. So thank you for that. As far as the CAFRs, I think people are going to be shocked by this. I hope that you're going to be shocked by it because I didn't know what a CAFR was, and I didn't know that it existed until about 6 or 8 months ago. And I've been studying it ever since. And like Dean said, a CAFR is a comprehensive annual financial report. It's mandated by the government, or it was in 1981, that all corporations, and that's the key word here, corporations, file a comprehensive annual financial report. I apologize to you because I had a CAFR to bring with me to demonstrate it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it today. But it was the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Yes, they are a corporation, in case you didn't know that. I also have the link to the New Hampshire CAFR. The state of New Hampshire is a corporation also. As a matter of fact, there's 185 to 190,000 CAFRs across the country, 60,000 of which are governmental CAFRs, which to me is shocking. Having said that, 84, these statistics that I'm giving you, by the way, are from 2011, not current. That's 5 years. 2011 statistics for the CAFRs, or the governmental CAFRs, I'm sorry, is 84% of the Fortune, not the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100 companies. 84% of all of those are owned by the government. Over 50% of all stocks in America are owned by government. So if you're wondering why things seem to be favorable towards corporations, it's because the government owns the corporations. Or you can say the other way around, I don't really know. A lot of these government people, when they retire from Congress, because they're not making enough money, robbing us, of 2, 3, 400,000 and making millions on the side, they get jobs in these corporations. Nice jobs too. Wouldn't mind having one myself. But anyway, the government owns the corporations over the government. I don't know if you want to figure that out on your own, you can make that determination. But it's one of the things I learned way back in high school is if the people owned the capital, that's called capitalism. If the government owns the capital, that's called communism. And I don't know where we are on the spectrum, but we're between fascism and communism. I don't know where it is. I'm not sure that I know the definitive line anyway, but we're somewhere in that area. I figure we're closer to communism than we are fascism. I don't know. I'll turn it over to you because I need to collect my thoughts, Steve.
Yep. I want to use an example that was used by Jerry Day. If you look up Jerry Day on YouTube, he'll talk about the CAFRs. He pointed out that in 2007, LA County had a budget of $17.5 billion a year. And that's a time when, as you know, we were headed into a recession. And somehow by 2012, their budget had gone up to $25.8 billion. That was an $8 billion or 47% increase in their budget. So of course, you got to wonder, during a recession, how did they get that money? Well, it wasn't, granted, they did tax more, and they also borrowed more. But what they really did was they just moved some money around in the CAFR. So the point here is that the government has been bamboozling you for decades, talking about the budgets, and they use that as a tactic to take more money away from you. You see, they're in this business of governmental services to make money. They're there to make a profit. They're highly compartmentalized, and so your average government person doesn't know this. And they're just doing their jobs and working for their family. So this is not an indictment of government employees. This is an indictment of the system, which is much larger and has, at the top, they know what's going on. So the state of New Hampshire Incorporated is a subsidiary of the United States Incorporated, which is a subsidiary of the UN and, again, the IMF. Each of the municipalities underneath the state is required by law to send some of their money to the state coffers, to the state fund, general fund. So it's a huge racketeering scheme. It is run like a mafio type of business. It's a organized crime syndicate all over our country. There's over 230,000, that's the last estimate I heard, 230,000 governmental municipalities that are for-profit, privately owned corporations masquerading as your government system. Now, they are providing some government services. Whether or not they're doing so at a decent cost to us, the taxpayers, is highly questionable, and in some cases, clearly not happening. But I wanted to point out that each of these CAFRs has special funds. So what happens is they only use a portion of their revenues as budgetary revenues, the taxing money. What they don't show you is that a lot of money goes into special funds, whether it's a rainy day fund or just various funds that they make up. It could be pension funds, it could be anything. And so if you take, for instance, a particular fund you might have a building that costs $150,000, and the government has to pay $1,000 a month to pay for that building. And over time, that becomes several $100,000 worth of payments over 30 years. So the government's going to show, even though they might have that $230,000 that they have to pay for the property, they're going to show that as a unfunded liability on their books in the CAFR. So that 230,000 won't show up in the budget or on the books. You'll never see the money. Multiply that times several million, and you come up with an estimated $60 trillion throughout the United States that is hidden from you. And literally, if you average it out, governments could literally pay off all of their debts and still be able to fund the tax revenues if we zeroed out our taxes altogether. So this is a huge scam. It's a huge ripoff of the American people. And it's unfortunate that we're sitting back comfortable, busting our tails, earning a living to get by, to take care of our families, raising our kids. And we're being ripped off really, really bad. Our futures are being stolen from us. So go ahead, Richie, if you want to take over.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a valid point about the budgets. When governments they talk about budgets, and they'll tell you the budget is short, we have a budget shortfall or whatever. And Dean mentioned the set-aside fund. There's a lot of different names for them: the Sunshine Fund, the Set-Aside Fund, the Rainy Day Fund. I can't think of them, but there's quite a few names that they use for them. And I was a state employee in Massachusetts. I worked closely with the governor when I was there. And he used to say that, and of course I used to smile at him and act like I knew what the hell he was talking about. And the reality is I just assumed he was talking about a set-aside fund that taxes were put in. Well, it's not taxes. And when they talk about budgets, they do not talk about the CAFR. The CAFR is totally separate from the budget. A budget is simply an estimate. You put together a budget on your house. I make $20,000 a year. I want to spend $5,000 on this and $2,000 on that and $3,000 on this. That's your budget. What they have is that budget that they put together and the CAFR, which is corporate money that they take. They take it from your tax dollars, purchase the stocks, put it in the CAFR, and they don't tell you about it. Yes, the CAFRs are audited, and they are posted, but you got to go looking for them. They're not disclosed to the general public. It's the best kept secret in town. As a matter of fact, Walter Burien refers to it, and he's the foremost authority on CAFRs. That's Walter, B-U-R-I-E-N, Burien, if you want to look it up on YouTube. He's got a few videos on it. But people don't realize this. This is money that your government is hiding from you or from us. And like Dean said, I believe it's either 60 or $65 trillion is the cumulative value of all these CAFRs around the country, which is more than enough so we wipe out all the taxes we have to pay. You never have to pay taxes again. And there is a way to do it. If you look up the Walter Burien's film, I think it's called Walter Burien, The Biggest Game in Town, I believe is what he calls it.
Yeah, that's it.
And Jerry Day, that's J-E-R-R-Y Day, has one that's called CAFRs, The Biggest Swindle, or the CAFR Swindle, excuse me. Jerry Day's very good at explaining it too. He does a lot of good videos on YouTube. Thank God for people like these out there that are shining the light of day on this fraud that the government is perpetrating. I think it's time. I'll give you another example. In the city of Chicago, and I hope I have this right, I believe it's Morgan Stanley went to the city, or the city approached Morgan Stanley, I don't know which, and said, we want to purchase or lease rather, your parking meters. So the city said, sure. They made a deal to lease them for 75 years at a price of $1.6 billion. And what the bank, this is their own admission now on their CAFR, is that the first 20 years will be spent recouping that $1.6 billion. After that, for the next 55 years, Morgan Stanley gets all the money. And you can't estimate what it is, because if they raise the price of the meters, obviously that's more revenue. But the people in Chicago don't know when they pull up to one of these meters that, their grandfather or father or whoever built the street, and they think they're paying money in the meter for the city to take care of the roads or whatever. Oh, no, that money's going to the bank. Morgan Stanley. The cops or the meter maids, whoever's writing the tickets, are being paid by the city, but the bank is getting the revenue. And that's an isolated, it's not an isolated example. your government, our government, I almost want to deny their existence, but they're selling everything out from under us because you don't own it. And I don't even want to get into that part of it. But you don't own it because you don't have a allodial title. Okay? You think you own your house, you don't own your house. The government owns your house, okay? Try to stop paying your taxes and you'll find out how long you live in your house. If you own it, why are you paying taxes? But that's a story for another day. I wanted to illustrate the parking meters because I think it's bizarre. It's theft on a grand scale, obviously. The bank is getting 55 years of revenue. 55 years. And they gave the town $1.6 billion, which is really chump change. As a matter of fact, I estimate it to be $4.5 billion Morgan Stanley's going to make over the next 55 years. And that's if they don't raise the rate. That's if the parking meters don't go up in price. So the whole thing is bizarre, it's crazy, and it's theft. And people should know about it. People should know about it. The one in New Hampshire, by the way, the one I mentioned earlier, the Department of Transportation, is 67 pages long. The one for New Hampshire is 187 pages. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to print it out because I didn't have enough paper or ink at the time. I would run out. So I didn't do it. But if anybody wants to send me an email address, I would be happy to send you the link to it. I don't have the most recent one. About 6 weeks ago, they were debating, if that's the correct word, in the House, the CAFR for New Hampshire, the 2015 one. And I haven't got it. I haven't put it up, or they haven't posted it. I'm not sure which. But I'll give you the one I have, and I think it's 2013 is the last one. So feel free to send me that.
I want to mention a couple things. One is that in America, the corporations, the businesses, they generally operate under accounting principles called generally accepted accounting principles, which most accountants are trained in. The auditors have a generally accepted accounting auditing principles, which is a little bit different. But the government uses a number of accounting tactics which are different standard-wise, and for that reason, even if you put one of these CAFRs in front of a normal accountant, they might have a hard time figuring out what's going on. And part of the reason is similar to the court systems, which we've talked about before, using a different language to bamboozle you and trick you into a jurisdiction that you don't belong, which is the jurisdiction of the sea when you're clearly standing on the land, common law. So similar thing is happening here with the CAFRs. They're doing some very sophisticated trickery with their numbers in order to extract the wealth out of America, put it into the government, which again, corporation, privately owned by the international banking cartel, and they are stealing, and we do deserve, if you look at from the late 40s and early 50s, this country exploded in prosperity, and it started to plateau around the 70s, and then it began to decline over time. And now, why is it that 50 years later, we don't have just an enormous prosperity in this country? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's been stolen. The value of your dollar since the inception of the dollar back in 1913, I believe it was, has decreased over 98%. The last statistic I saw, and that was a few years ago. So at this point, it's probably 99% of the value of your dollar is gone. That's wealth that's been stolen from you. I also wanted to say, there's two tricks over the last decade or two that they've been using. When you see a company that, I'm sure all of you have seen companies go out of business, they have like a fire sale, right? They discount things and they start selling them off. Well, that's what Richie was talking about with the Chicago parking meters. But that's happening all over the country. Take, for instance, what's happening in Oregon with the Ammon Bundy and who was it? The Hammond family. Yeah. There were 50-some families that were pushed off their land by the bullying of the Bureau of Land Management, and that land was taken from them, and it's being sold to international countries. China bought a bunch. Russia was going to buy some of that land where the Hammonds are, And they're doing it because of the minerals, the gold, the uranium in the land. So it's all a big scam. And I can tell you right now, Hillary Clinton and her Clinton Foundation was involved in the Hammond ranch in Oregon. It's very sophisticated. There's a lot going on, and you really should do your research to find out about it. But anyway, what they're doing is they're selling off our assets, knowing that this country is collapsing because it's being collapsed by design. Your currency is almost worthless at this point. There are other countries that are now not using the dollar as an international currency, as the backup currency, and so we're at risk. And I'm hearing everywhere that our currency is close to collapse. And the other trick that they've used over the last few decades, and this has been going on for a long time, is the fees. It used to be when I was growing up, there weren't fees for everything you did every time you turned around and had to do a government thing, whether it was get a license or just anything. But they have enormous fees now that you have to pay. And I got to pay this month $300 some odd just to be able to drive my car in the city of Manchester. I got to pay that money. And I know 50 of it goes to the state, but why is it when we pay our taxes, all the taxes that we pay, why do we have to pay these fees? Well, it's because that's their method. If they can keep us, they can hold us down by extracting our wealth, then they keep us from rising up and taking back our country. And really our goal is to reawaken the human spirit, reawaken the human people, and in particular in this country to kindly, legally, and lawfully take our country back. And I believe that can happen through the common law grand juries and a number of different avenues. Think globally, act locally. Go ahead, Richie. You got anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that not only everything is corporate, and I do mean everything. New Hampshire Department of Transportation is corporate. The New Hampshire Incorporated, the entire state is corporate. Each court in the United States, and that includes New Hampshire, is corporate. When you go into court, it's all about money. I'll give you an example. Under common law, which is this book here, the Constitution is common law, which we're all supposed to be under if we didn't have such a fraudulent judicial system. You wouldn't have to pay parking tickets. Parking tickets are unconstitutional. And like I said before, another word for unconstitutional is illegal. A parking ticket is called a bill of attainder or a writ of assistance. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. You don't have to pay them. It's, in other words, I don't know why the courts, well, I do know why. The courts shouldn't even be posing these things to you, like you have to pay them. No, you don't have to pay them. And the fact that the judge is sitting up there doing this is total fraud, and it's illegal. But it's not just the courts. Everybody's participating in it, and it's our ignorance. Look, I don't have an axe to grind with the guy sitting up on the bench. Well, maybe I do. Judges, I do. Lawyers, I think most of them are ignorant and don't know any better. Police, since I used to be one, I think they're ignorant. They don't know any better. We're all helping to the demise of this country. And if we don't wake up soon, we will not have a country left. I watched and I don't want to be redundant, I watched the tape on Lavoy Finicum being murdered. And I thought about it. I said, you know, this is crazy. Here's a guy, he blew the whistle on the fact that the government was trying to protect their resources. So they're kicking the ranchers off the land. Keep off the land. We want the gold and we want the uranium and all the other resources that are up there. Well, I'm tired of seeing that stuff. The government owns nothing but the 10 square miles that we the people gave them in Washington. And that's all they own. That's what the law of the land says right here. You can read that for yourself. I believe it's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, but I could be wrong about that. The clause, anyway. And I mentioned Jerry DeLemus. He's another one. You got trumped up charges. I've watched a guy like Lavoy Finicum be murdered, and he's a good man. And now I watched Jerry DeLemus get arrested because he was out there. And they're doing this to people all over the country, by the way. You won't see it in the mainstream news because the mainstream media is bought and paid for and owned by the government. It all ties in, but everybody has to wake up to the fact that, you know, it's time to bring this government under control. They're outrageous. I'm not looking to fight with the government. I'm not looking to fight with anybody. I've been a pretty mild guy my whole life. But I don't want my rights taken away. I don't want to be imprisoned. I don't want my liberties taken away. I want to be left alone to live free. And I believe you do too. But if we all stay ignorant, it's not, you can forget about it. Educate yourself, right? And I'll say these things again in case you didn't have a pen or a pencil. It was Walter Burien, B-U-R-I-E-N, and his video, which is all on YouTube, by the way, is The Biggest Game in Town. And the other one, there's several, actually, I'll give you a couple. Jerry Day, which is the CAFR Swindle. And the third one, I think the man's name is Clint Richardson. It's over 3 hours long, so you're going to have to bear with this, but he's really, really good. It's
The
Corporation Nation.
Yeah.
And watch those 3 videos, or watch 1 or 2 of them. It doesn't really matter. You'll get the idea of what's going on in this country. It's bizarre and it's crazy. The other person right now that I would recommend you see, and it has to do with the Constitution, is Publius Huldah. And I'll spell that for you. Publius Huldah. And the woman is phenomenal. She's a retired attorney and a JAG officer, a Judge Adjutant General from the military. And she's the best I've seen at explaining the Constitution. You will have a profound understanding of the Constitution once you listen to her. So I strongly recommend you do that. Thank
I
you.
just want to reiterate what Richie said about the Corporation Nation on YouTube. He lists it as CAFR School, and he has a bunch of them. He's fantastic. He'll walk you through an entire CAFR. So one thing I didn't get to mention last week is Richie announced his candidacy for sheriff of Hillsborough County. What I want to say about that is that there's times when you recognize the quality of a person as being high in integrity and having conviction, people that keep their word. And in my estimation, that's who Richie is. I just want you to know that if you take the time to vote Richie in as the sheriff of Hillsborough County, you're going to have a man who absolutely honors you, represents you, and honors the Constitution and follows it. Will keep his oath and not just take the oath for the sake of process. So the good news is there is a legal and lawful solution to these problems. The National Liberty Alliance is working to reinstate the common law grand juries through all the counties in the nation. And we, the people, are responsible for managing this country. We are the ones to blame for where we've come to, but we are also the ones that are the problem. So for those of you who are comfortable doing nothing, I'm just letting you know that you don't have much longer to do that. So it's time to stand up, speak up, write your representatives, get involved, come to one of our meetings, do your research on YouTube, commit some time every week. We have to do this ourselves. You can't sit around and wait for Donald Trump or whoever you might think is going to save our country. It's not going to happen. We have to do it at the local level, all across the country. The good news is it's happening. There are a lot of people who are involved in standing up and getting involved. So we're on our way, and we ask that you join us. Thank you again for watching us. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.